You're not lost. You've been found by something quieter than your plans, softer than your to-do list, patient enough to wait while you tidy the edges of your life. Calm doesn't come from control. Calm comes from awareness. Hear that sentence like a small bell in the chest. Not an instruction to fix everything at once, but a fact you can test right now. The world will still ask you to perform, to hustle, to forecast outcomes. The world will continue to rattle with urgency, with headlines and deadlines, and the little internal announcer that says there's never enough. But underneath that racket there is a steady hum, an inner signal that has always been present. Name it the watcher, the silent witness, your inner architect. It is not another task. It is the place from which the task can be done without tearing you apart. Notice the difference between signal and noise. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, brake lights all around you, a highway of impatience. The noise is the honk, the calendar ping, the story you tell about the hour lost. The signal is the small unclaimed space that opens when you unclench, the feeling at the base of your skull, the expansion behind your sternum, the soft exhale that announces nothing urgent. You've felt it before, in the soft brightness that arrives just after you wake from a dream, when you meet a stranger's gaze and the world refocuses for a moment, in the quiet after a phone call ends. That's the watcher. It's not far. It's not absent. It is simply quieter than the culture's loudspeaker. Listen, that hum is the signal. It doesn't tell you what to do in a loud voice. It doesn't demand that you engineer outcomes. It offers orientation. From that place you can choose with clarity, select with tenderness, act with integrity. Control tells you to squeeze every variable until it complies. Awareness tells you what is here. One is a tightening, the other is an opening. Calm grows from opening. If this is landing, pause and take one slow breath now. Now stay with the felt sense of that breath. Notice where it lives in your body, the ribs that widen like small wings, the abdomen that softens, the throat that relaxes. This breath does not fix the problem on your mind. It shifts the relationship you have with it. You can hold both urgency and spaciousness at once. You can be moving and still have a center. Time, too, is less linear than we pretend. Imagine time not as a straight line, but as a spiral or a loom. There are threads running like lifelines, versions of you woven alongside one another. Some of those threads are bright and immediate, others dimmed by fear or habit. When you begin to attend differently, when you orient from the watcher rather than the frantic mind, you begin to tug a different thread into view. This is not magical sleight of hand. It is an experiential model for living that lets you see continuity without being trapped by past patterns. Think of your body like a library rather than a machine. Your cells keep stories, memories of survival, of joy, of the ways your ancestors learned to endure. I say this as metaphor. Imagine DNA as stacked books, some dusty, some bookmarked. The wound you carry is not a defect that must be cut out, but a coded passage that, when read with care, teaches you about loyalty, boundary, longing. A wound can be a map. It shows where you were hurt, yes, but it also points toward what you value most. Betrayal becomes a tuning fork for loyalty. Loss becomes an instrument that teaches you how to hold tenderness. Attention is the hand that opens the pages. You can test this. Take an old ache, something you've told yourself is a failure or a stigma, and listen to it like a curious child. Ask, what does this ache want me to notice? Not to justify the harm, not to romanticize it, simply to discern what boundary was missing, what love was needed, what courage was deferred. You are not excusing injury, you are translating it. The translation releases you from repeating the same sentence in different rooms. This translation is not airy spirituality. It is an embodied practice. Don't say, I am love, move as love, another teacher once said. Let it be a reminder that identity is not a slogan. It is a way of acting. Wash your dishes like prayer. Make your bed like an offering. Fold laundry as if you are tending a small altar. These acts are not small because they are simple. They are small because they invite repetition. Small acts repeated with attention have a strange alchemy. They collapse possibilities into reality. Attention is not passive, it is creative. Consider 3 micro-actions you can do this week. Simple experiments in redirecting control toward awareness. First, the breath anchor. Throughout your day, choose one ordinary moment. Walking from room to room, waiting for the kettle, sitting at your desk, and let your breath become a home base. Breathe in for 4 counts. Allow the belly to soften. Exhale for 5. Do it 3 times in a row. This is not intended to be a cure for everything, but each repetition is a tiny rewiring. You remind your nervous system. You can be present and safe at once. Second, the boundary experiment. Identify one small yes that is felt automatic, one task you accept out of habit rather than choice, and practice saying a brief, honest phrase, "I can't take that on right now." You do not have to explain yourself at length. The point is to train your attention to prioritize how a choice feels, rather than how it looks on a resume. In place of controlling the other person's response, control only your clarity. Notice how that feels in the body. There will likely be a tremor, a heat, a rush. Breathe. The watcher observes without needing to do damage control. Third, the everyday ritual. Pick one mundane activity, making a cup of tea, watering a plant, opening the mailbox, and do it slowly for 5 minutes. Notice the textures, the sounds, the temperature against your skin. Speak to the object if you like. "I'm here." This softens what we call busy and teaches the nervous system to meet presence in small doses. Over time, these tiny practices accumulate not because they are dramatic, but because they are faithful. The cultural story tells you to aim for the immaculate finish line. It offers control as the pathway to safety. Plan harder, prepare longer, never make mistakes. But control is expensive. It costs spontaneity, it costs rest, it costs the tenderness that makes life meaningful. Awareness is cheaper and more exacting in another way. It asks for presence now. It asks you to show up to the moment with honest attention. Lower your expectations of how the outcome must look. Raise your standards for how things feel along the way. This is the practical surrender. You stop controlling the future. You care ferociously about the present. We make choices every day that are small and brave. Send the email you've been postponing. Speak a soft truth to a friend. Put a boundary where habit had allowed leakage. These are not gestures of control. They are acts of alignment. They are signals that say, "I will not let my past patterns alone determine my present behavior." In doing the next true thing, you change the rhythm of your life. You may feel resistance. The old survival architecture, what our ancestors passed down, what your formative years instruct, knows how to keep you alive through certain strategies. Those strategies worked. They were ingenious. They were necessary. We honor them by not shaming them, by recognizing they are adaptive. But now we can choose new adaptations. The watcher remembers this continuity with compassion. It says, "You are not betraying your past if you no longer live by its scaffolding. You are returning." Return is the core verb here. You are not lost in an existential sense. You are not missing in cosmic terms. You are returning to a coherent interior. You are coming back to a center that has always been present. Each return is an act of courage, and each act reverses the habit of believing you are always wrong or insufficient. There are times when the world will demand control, when safety is threatened in immediate, tangible ways. Awareness is not a luxury in those moments. It is necessary. The difference is knowing what your task is. Discern, respond, and then return to witness. Calm is not complacency. Calm is the capacity to respond from a grounded space rather than from scattered reactivity. Imagine now a scene. It's evening. The sink holds a small mountain of dishes from dinner, lemon steam ghosting from a mug forgotten. A child's drawing is pinned to the fridge with a crooked magnet. Outside, a neighbor's dog barks intermittently. You could turn the chaos into a battle. Rush, scrub more, finish everything before tomorrow arrives. Or you could approach the sink like an altar. Feel the warm water on your hands. Notice the sound the sponge makes as it wipes the plate. Let your breath slow. Each plate washed is an offering to steadiness. Each motion tells your nervous system, we can move through this without emergency. That is not indulgence. It is training. Small embodied choices send messages to your system that are louder than any pep talk. When you lower the volume on the performance culture, the watcher grows bolder. It shows you which steps are true. When you treat time as layered instead of linear, you permit different versions of yourself to collaborate. One version bids you caution, another urges boldness. The watcher orchestrates the conversation so you can act with nuance. Wounds show up as recurring scenes. Perhaps you find yourself exiting a relationship, then soon repeating the same type of partner choice. Perhaps you keep waiting to be seen at work, and recognition never arrives, so you double down on overwork. These patterns are not moral failings. They are loops that have energy and logic. To change them, attention must land on the pattern without mythologizing it. Regard it like a weather system. You can see it, name it, prepare for it. You can also learn to step into a different climate. There is a practical method I offer here that you can test. The 3-question compass. When you notice a habitual reaction, ask yourself, 1. What is the immediate sensation in my body? Anchor in feeling, name it, heat, tightness, emptiness. 2. What is the earliest story I am running about this situation? Identify the narrative. I'm not enough. If I don't fix this, I'll lose them. 3. What is the smallest next true action I can take that is aligned with how I want to feel? A reply, a pause, a boundary. Answering these 3 in quick succession moves you from reactivity to agency. It does not promise a perfect outcome. It promises clarity. Let me be clear about language we sometimes borrow from science or mysticism. You may hear talk about timelines, about shifting probabilities, about DNA and quantum metaphors. Use these as maps, not as mandates. Imagine timelines like parallel paths in a forest. We can choose which path we notice and nurture. Imagine DNA as a library of stories, not a prescription. These metaphors help us feel the possibility of change without requiring us to assert literal scientific proof in a way that excludes other experiences. They soften a worldview into an invitation. Imagine if attention could rearrange not fate, but orientation. Part of this practice is compassionate pragmatism. Do not outsource your peace to outcomes you cannot wholly control. You cannot promise a reconciliation, a promotion, a cure. You can make space for alignment with what matters, and you can set standards for how things feel. The standard is not perfection. It is integrity. It is daily fidelity to the watcher's guidance. There will be grief along the way. Returning does not erase loss. It teaches you how to mourn with presence. Notice grief as a living thing. Name it. Allow it space. Offer it the body's breath. Grief is a portal, not a permanent sentence. When tended, it yields a new tenderness for life. This is not a trite reassignment of meaning. It is the slow alchemy of attention. We too often believe that spiritual practice must look extraordinary. In truth, it is mostly small. It is 3 breaths at the sink. It is a soft no. It is a brief apology and then a different choice. Over months and years, these micro-practices compound like seeds in fertile soil. You will not always notice the progress in a straight line. Sometimes you will circle back. Sometimes the watcher will need to remind you of a step you already knew. Patience is part of the practice. There is power in ritualizing return. Create a simple ritual that signals to your body you are choosing presence. It can be as small as lighting a candle and placing your hand on your heart for 30 seconds each morning, or as practical as compiling one list of 3 small true tasks you will complete before lunch. Rituals train attention. They create continuity across days when mood and circumstance vary. Another practice. Turn a complaint into a question. When you catch yourself complaining about traffic, about a partner, about a job, translate the complaint into a non-blaming query. What does this want from me? Or, what boundary is being asked for here? The translation invites curiosity where judgment would otherwise tighten. Curiosity invites the watcher to the table. We are often taught to protect ourselves by tightening. Tightening buys short-term control, but eventually exhausts the nervous system. Awareness asks for a different kind of protection, clear seeing and measured response. That kind of protection rests on the belief that you can be present with discomfort and still be okay. It is not about making discomfort vanish. It is about deciding you can steward yourself through it. You might worry that surrender means passivity. It does not. Surrender here means releasing the fantasy that you can fully script the external world while holding your interior aloft without care. It means choosing what you can steward, your attention, your body, your word, and releasing the rest. From there you act with more efficacy, not less. At a certain threshold, the practice becomes identity work. You begin to move as though you are a person who notices. That movement changes the set of possible next steps available to you. You meet relationships differently. You meet work differently. You meet yourself differently. That is why the watcher is sometimes called the architect. It quietly rearranges the interior architecture of your life so your outer life follows more gracefully. There will be messy days. There will be moments when you revert to old strategies. Do not use that reversion as evidence you have failed. Use it as data. The watcher is not punitive. It logs, it points, it invites. Return to the breath. Return to the small act. Return to the practice of naming sensation before story. Each return steadies you further. As you practice, you will notice an emergent theme. The world begins to slow down in your perception. Not because life becomes easier, but because your relation to it shifts. Events are no longer weather systems you must survive. They are weather you can navigate. This change is subtle and profound. It is like discovering you can swim rather than always clinging to shore. Before we close, one more concrete practice to carry. The 3-minute recalibration. When you feel the noise rising, stop what you are doing if possible. Place both feet on the ground. Soften the jaw. Bring the attention to the soles of the feet and feel the contact with the floor. Then bring one hand to your belly and the other to your heart. Breathe slowly, in through the nose for 4 counts, out through the mouth for 6. Repeat 12 breaths, or until the edge of the agitation eases. Then ask, what is the next true thing? Do that thing. The 3-minute recalibration is not a fix-all. It is a habit that signals to your nervous system a choice for awareness. You are not supposed to be perfect. You are supposed to be present. Presence is the unglamorous, revolutionary work of noticing. Notice the hum. Notice the wound. Notice the next true step. And choosing what aligns with integrity. Quiet will not be delivered as a prize after you conquer everything. Calm arrives when you stop trying to control every variable and instead become fluent in attention. So practice with tenderness. When you fail to be present, greet yourself as you would a friend who has tripped. Offer a breath and a gentle instruction. Return. Teach your nervous system new grammar by repetition. Attention, breath, small action. Over time, the trembling eases. The hum grows louder. The watcher speaks with a steadier voice. You will not be immune to storms, but you will harbor a place inside that is not storm-swept. Remember the phrase that opened us. Calm doesn't come from control. Calm comes from awareness. Repeat it inwardly. Let it be a garment you put on when the cold of panic or obligation smarts. Wear it during the dishes, during the commute, in the emails you send with a shaking hand. Wear it when grief comes and when joy arrives. Wear it as a practice, as a posture, as a way of returning. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. That truth is not an escalation out of life. It is a reorientation within it. Here, in this breath, in these hands, in the way you move through a kitchen or a conversation, is the place to begin again. The watcher waits. The hum is present. The next true thing is within reach. If this spoke to you, leave a comment or subscribe for more practices like this. Calm comes from awareness, not control.